we're going to dive in right away because I want the timing to work out well enough that you can make both your cauliflower mash and your hummus. So first things first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you're in the metric system, that's 175 Celsius. So while that's preheating, we're going to prep some cauliflower. We're going to wrap a bulb of garlic to roast. We're going to do that together. So I want you to take a full bulb of garlic. If there's a lot of extra skin on the outside, just pull some of it off. So just trim it like this. You want, let's see if we can get that to, there we go. You want to have most of the bulbs exposed. It's okay if a few aren't exposed. We're just going to be squeezing all the goodness out of here later. So toss that in your waste bowl. We're going to make a little package for our foil. Set it in the center. I'm just going to fold up the sides and really give it a twist so that the top is sealed nicely, and make sure that you don't have any tears in here. What we're doing is we're trapping the moisture in this as it roasts in the oven. So place this in your 350 degree Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius oven. Let that roast as we prep everything else. So next up, I'm going to do my cauliflower. I've already rinsed this. I haven't trimmed the bottoms off yet, so I'm going to trim this with you. And then we're going to get this ready to roast along with our tomato. So for the most part, just break these large green stems off on the bottom until you can start to get to the internal structure here. Okay, cool. So we're basically in there. It's going to get to the point where you can't really get in much deeper. You can, if you really try, you can get a little bit more. But that's when we start taking our knife out. So this is where you want to be pretty careful. Angle this a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So you want to angle in a little bit, fingers at the top. I don't want you holding this down here, otherwise your knife could slice right through and hit your fingers. So fingers at the top. And we're just kind of doing a cut in, rolling it, doing another cut in. We're just trying to loosen this stem from the center here so that we can easily remove it. Another cut in. There we go. So we got that removed. There's still a little bit left down here, but now we can easily get to it since we got that stem out of the way. And then when you want to chop giant cruciferous veggies like this and get all the individual florets, it's easiest to do it when we see it from the inside here, because we can go in and slice some of these right where they connect to that base. So if we come in here, make sure you can see what's going on. I'm going to hit one, come around. We're just finding where those are connected to the base and just slicing through them. Again, just be careful that your hand is far away from the blade. We don't want any fingers getting lost here. And once you start getting to the much smaller florets, so the bottom is going to have the biggest ones, right? Once you start getting to the significantly smaller ones, then you could keep doing the same process. But for this is all going to get blended up anyway. So I'm just going to start chopping this into slices. We've got something a little easier to work with. There we go. And then you want to get out a large rimmed baking sheet, and we're going to line that with foil. I've got this guy here. I'm going to line this with foil, throw all my cauliflower on there. And the reason we line this with foil is twofold. One, it reduces cleanup later. Two, is it actually allows us to use this like a funnel later on, so that when we're using our food processor or our blender, it's really easy for us to transfer our hot ingredients to that vessel. We don't have to worry about pulling out a spatula or anything. We can just take the foil off like a big packet, pick it up, create a little bit of a funnel, and then angle it into the blender or the food processor, and that gives us a really nice, easy food transportation system. So I'm just going to throw this on here, and I'm leaving So I'm throwing my cauliflower in here. I'm leaving one spot, that's good tomato, right at the end here, available for my tomatoes. And that is also part of that food funnel thing. And that'll make sense in just a moment. It's less of an issue if you're using a food processor, but if you're using a blender, that thing, that tip, keep your tomato at one end and use this like a funnel, it's going to change your life. So we just want as much of that as we can get. And these little bits are actually more likely to burn than they are to roast, so I'm going to toss those in my trim bowl. Okay, so all of our cauliflower's on there now, and now I'm going to prep this tomato. Now, most of the time when we prep a tomato, let's see if we get that, there we go. Most of the time when we prep a tomato, we're actually going to want to slice it this way, scoop out the seeds, and then do something like a dice from there. In this case, we don't need this to look pretty since later it's just going to be blended. So what we're actually going to do is slice it this way so that we have the easiest path to remove all of our seeds, and I'll show you what that looks like. So when we slice it like that, it exposes all of the cavities that hold our seeds. So we can easily remove the seeds from this. And if you've been on a call with me before, where we remove the seeds from our tomatoes, all you do is just scoop in with your finger. So here's what my pan looks like. And I'll explain why the tomatoes are at one end. This is so that when I'm using a blender, so let me give you visuals so it makes sense. So here is my blender vessel, right? This is what I could blend things in. And when I throw a bunch of ingredients in here, whatever goes in first goes to the bottom, right? Well, if the things that go to the bottom are super dry, or the things that go in at the top are where all the moisture is, these things don't blend all that well. The dry things kind of move around, but things get stuck. If the things that have more moisture are at the bottom, then those slosh around a lot and they get all the dry stuff on top to move, so everything gets incorporated nicely. Now, if you put your tomatoes off to one side and then use this whole setup like a little funnel, you can make sure the tomato end goes in first, so the tomatoes hit the bottom of the blender. Then when it's processing, the tomatoes, since they have a much higher moisture content than your cauliflower, are going to help get that moisture going and then make sure everything else mixes nicely so you get a much more even blend with less finickiness and poking in there with a spatula. So this is all prepped. This is going in that 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. We're going to jump into the hummus now. And one of the reasons I really love hummus as a food to make is one, it's so stupid easy. Nothing in here is cooked. We're using all of these ingredients at the base level, just how you bought them, and then they're just combining with each other really well. And in particular, in this recipe, lemon is really what sets it apart. Fresh lemon. So you absolutely want a fresh lemon for this. You do not want lemon juice in a little squeeze bottle or in a jar. You can make the food, it'll be okay. It will not hold a candle to hummus made with fresh lemon juice, though. It's a night and day difference, and that's one of the reasons I love this recipe. If there's a fallback and you need something, you can use the pre-done lemon juice. Just know that it will not taste nearly as good. So with our hummus, and it's so easy. The recipe is 1 can of chickpeas. They're the same exact thing as garbanzo beans. Same thing, they're just labeled differently. And those cans are going to be labeled between 15 and 16 ounces. Often, for some reason, it's 15.5. All of those are fine. 1 fresh lemon. We want all of the juice of that lemon and all of the zest. And so one of the things we're going to do in this call is I'm going to show you how to use a microplane. It's really easy. It's a really valuable tool. Actually, this is what it looks like. A little microplane. Often it's just referred to as a zester. These are, I think they're like $7, maybe 14 at most. But it is an incredibly useful tool. You can use this for grinding spices. So I use this when I'm grinding my fresh nutmeg, when I'm putting that on like burger meat. Nutmeg on burger meat is actually phenomenal. Or if that nutmeg is going to like a seasonal drink, like a hot buttered rum topped with some fresh nutmeg or hot cocoa, phenomenal. Or if I'm finishing on a cake, I use it for if I need to just grate up a carrot real quick, or if you need to grate some garlic. Some folks really hate chopping garlic. And if you've joined me in previous calls, you should have learned how to chop garlic. So it's not actually all that tough. But if you need it really, really, really fine, use a microplane. Peel the skin off and then rub your garlic clove on there, break it down, tap out what comes out. You've got really finely ground garlic. And then the other thing is it's phenomenal at removing the skin from citrus. And I'll get into that a little bit later as we actually do that with our lemon. So can of garbanzo beans or chickpeas, same thing. One fresh lemon. We're going to use 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Again, this is a food where the higher the quality, the better the flavor. 2 cloves of garlic. We're going to just peel those and they're going to get blended in with everything else. So you don't have to chop anything, just peel them and remove the root. And then this is actually the secret ingredient most people don't think about. So the typical hummus recipe will ask you to use tahini, which is a sesame paste. I've tried it, and I've tried this other method that we're doing tonight. This other method works better. It's easier to find the ingredients, and it tastes better. So instead of tahini, which can be hard to find in some grocery stores, we're actually going to use sesame oil. It often looks like something like this. It's kind of a clearish, dark brown liquid. Sesame oil, however, is super potent, incredibly potent. So we literally only use 2 to 3 drops in this recipe. Drops. There's a little dropper in the top. You do drops. So don't overdo it. It's really easy to overdo it. Sometimes a couple extra drops fall in and it's fine. But if you're just shaking like crazy, it's not going to taste good. So just 2 to 3 drops is what we use here. And then we finish it with salt and pepper. That's everything. So garbanzo beans, lemon, olive oil, cumin. I think I forgot the cumin. We use about a tablespoon of cumin, garlic, sesame, salt, pepper. And we put salt and pepper on just about everything. That's it. You just add all those things to a blender and you blend it up. Get your can of garbanzo beans, and you want to open up the top of the can and drain these out. You don't want the liquid that comes with these. I've already gone ahead and done that here, and this is just my my 1 can's worth of garbanzo beans sitting right there. So garbanzo beans in. Don't need that bowl anymore. After the garbanzo beans, we've got our lemon. So I've already rinsed this off. You want to make sure you rinse it first when you're using the skin. And before you slice into it, we want to remove the zest. And you'll find when you use lemon juice and things is you taste a lot of acidity. You don't taste a lot of lemon. When you use the skin of the lemon, that's when all the lemony flavor comes out, because most of the flavor in citrus is actually in the skin. This outer beautiful yellow layer is where most of the lemony scent, lemony flavor comes from, because that's where the oils of this fruit reside. And that's why we want to keep that whenever we can. And that's why you see things like lemon zest added to recipes, because they want the lemon flavor, not just the lemon acidity. So we've got our microplane. But what's nice is you can just set this over the top of your vessel and just go around. We're just going to zest this bad boy. You don't want to go too hard. So you see, I'm removing, let's get that in focus. I'm removing most of the skin, but I'm not going so far that this becomes pure white. You don't want pure white. So like this is fine. If I went a little bit further, I'd be running into dangerous territory, because then I'm hitting what's called the pith. And the pith is where all that bitterness is. So if you ever chewed on most likely an orange peel, possibly a lemon peel, and started tasting bitter, what you were tasting was the pith. The pith, since it's bitter, does not taste good. The zest does not have any of that bitterness to it. So we want the zest without the pith. I'm going to slice off the ends of this guy and slice it in the middle so that it's a little easier for us to juice it. Slicing off the ends just makes it a little bit easier for us to get a flat surface for our citrus juicer to squeeze all of that beautiful juice out. Then we want 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. That's our olive oil. Then we want about a tablespoon of ground cumin. And this isn't, it doesn't need to be perfect. So that's about, I could add a little bit more, about a tablespoon of cumin. We've got 2 cloves of garlic now. If you trim off the root end of your garlic before crushing it, you'll notice I didn't even crush it very much, just enough to break the skin. The skin comes off in one piece for each thing and stays together much better. No need to chop these, they just go right in, the blades in here. We're going to do that for us. Now our sesame oil. So literally, this is drops, right? This is one, that was 1, 2, wait for it, 3. That's it. 3 drops of sesame oil, and then some salt and pepper. So you can be pretty generous with this. It's good. You can also always add more later because we're going to blend this up, so you'll get to taste what it's actually going to be like when it's done. And for salt, a good 3-finger pinch here to start with. And we're going to process this up, see how it tastes, and go from there. If it tastes great, we don't need to add more. If, however, it tastes like there is a lot of flavor missing or we're not tasting much of it, we just add more. With a bunch of ingredients like this, when you use a food processor, usually what you do is you start a couple quick pulses, kind of break things up, before you then just go full on blend mode. So that's almost done already. You saw how fast that was. 90% of the time here has just been me talking and explaining things to you. I'm just going to wipe down the sides real quick so that everything gets blended in. Okay, that's it. This is done. That's what a little bit of like olive oil, maybe lemon juice at the bottom that didn't fully blend in. You just stir that up and it's fine. That's about the consistency that you want. And I'm going to grab a little spoon so I can taste this and see how it is. It's really nice and bright because of the lemon. The cumin comes through. It's got a little weight to it because the olive oil gives it a little weight, so it lasts a little bit longer on the palate. The salt isn't overpowering. We got just about the right amount in there. The pepper comes through a little bit. You get a little bit of the bite, and some of that bite's also coming from the garlic. So this is already our 45-minute timer just finished, and we're going to take our cauliflower and garlic out of the oven. The garlic bulb is going to be very hot. Just set that off somewhere. This is super simple. We're going to take a head of cauliflower, take 1 whole tomato, we take a whole bulb of garlic, we take a little bit of butter, we take some salt, we take some pepper. We roast most of it, everything other than butter, salt, pepper. We throw it in a blender or food processor, we blend it up, and it's delicious. So we talked about the sling and funnel idea earlier. So with this cauliflower, we've got our aluminum foil holding everything here. We've got our tomatoes down on one side, so the moistest food falls into our food processor first. It's especially helpful for blenders, but it doesn't hurt with food processors either. So I'm just going to pick this up. Be very careful picking up the aluminum foil so you don't catch your fingers on the edge of the pan. Got this guy like this. To this mixture, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Get my section off. Dump it right in. Bunch of pepper. Sprinkle salt. And if you can't find white cauliflower, if you only find like the yellow or the purple cauliflower, those still work too. They'll have a different color. I'm getting kind of generous with my salt here. They'll have a little bit of a different color, and it's totally fine. They'll still taste really rich and delicious because cauliflower just picks up some beautiful flavor profiles when you roast it. So before we start this, we got to squeeze all the garlicky goodness out of our garlic. So just hold the bottom with a towel or something. I don't want you burning your hands. That bowl is quite toasty. Pops right out. See all that steam coming off? That's why we roasted it wrapped so tightly in this foil. We didn't want to lose all of that steam in the process. So what we can do here is we want to squeeze all this garlic out. It's been roasting for a little more than 45 minutes because this went in a few minutes before the cauliflower, and it's super soft. So what we do, we roll it over, and we want to, right above the root here, we want to start squeezing. You can use a bench scraper. You can use your chef's knife. You can even see it squeezing out on this side here. So we want to squeeze as much of that out as we can. You can see all that garlicky goodness over there. Yeah, okay. I'm not getting much more out of that. This garlic is nice and flat and empty now. And we're just going to scoop up all of that beautiful garlic paste, add it into the food processor. And so again, the ingredients here are super easy. About 12 ounces of cauliflower, so it's about 1 head of cauliflower. Got a little garlic on my finger. 1 fresh tomato, seeded. 1 bulb of garlic, roasted, and then we squeeze out the garlic paste like we just did together there. You need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, maybe 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Do it by eye. We're going to blend this, and then you can taste it and see if you like it. And if you think it needs more salt or needs more pepper, you can add more. And I always encourage you to try your food as you're cooking to see how it is. Now you might wonder why the tomato is in this recipe, and it's there for 2 reasons. One, you can kind of see here right now, it actually adds this beautiful light orangish texture or color rather, hue, if you will, to the mixture. The other is it adds just the right amount of moisture for this to blend nicely. Without it, the whole thing ends up being a bit dry, and you then either have to add a lot more butter or a lot more olive oil to get this so that it actually blends. And you can take this to whatever consistency you want. I don't need mine to be really crazy smooth. If that's the texture of mine, it's going to taste fairly smooth because everything's so soft. If you want it really super duper smooth, all you got to do is keep running it longer, and it will eventually get as smooth as you like. So that's pretty good. I actually want more salt in this. Other things you can do is you can play around and add other flavors to this. You can just doing some small pinches here. Like if you want to add a real kick to this, you could add like some cayenne pepper. You could add some paprika. If you wanted this to be a little more herby, you could add like some parsley or some cilantro or some thyme. You could even add some rosemary to this, which will add some really beautiful flavor to your mixture and kind of make sure it pairs well with everything. It basically already does. It's a pretty phenomenal dish that you can serve as a side to, say, steaks, and it works really well. Yep, nailed it. Please taste your food. I think you're going to be blown away by how good it tastes.